Hey, listener name. I'm really curious about this deep dive. You sent over a ton of info on Metis, including this Nuovo Documento di Microsoft Word.pdf file. It seems like you're trying to figure out if Metis can really compete with the big players in the Ethereum Layer 2 space. What's caught your eye so far?
Well, Metis promises faster transactions and lower fees on Ethereum, which is a big deal for anyone using the network. It's like Ethereum, but with an express lane.
Okay, let's unpack this express lane idea. The source material mentions something called optimistic rollups.
Right, that's the key innovation here. Imagine a separate lane on that highway, processing transactions much faster, because it doesn't need to follow all of Ethereum's mainnet rules. Then it reports back periodically with a summary of what happened. That's optimistic rollups in a nutshell, and it's how Metis achieves those faster speeds and lower cost.
That's really interesting because it seems like they found a way to innovate without completely reinventing the wheel. But there's also this whole concept of sequencer nodes and how they contribute to Metis's decentralization. What's the deal with that?
Think of sequencer nodes as the organizers of these express lanes. They bundle transactions together efficiently. But here's the kicker. On Metis, these nodes are chosen by the community. It's a big deal because it prevents any single entity from having too much control over the network, which aligns with the whole ethos of decentralization.
So it's like having a community-owned and operated highway system instead of relying on a single private company.
Exactly. And this community-driven approach extends to other aspects of Metis as well. Take staking, for example.
Right. Our notes mention that Metis allows for both regular staking and something called liquid staking. From what I understand, you lock up your Metis tokens to help secure the network and get rewarded for it. It's like earning interest, right?
Yes, but with an added layer of flexibility. Imagine having a certificate of deposit that you could still use if you needed access to your funds. That's essentially what liquid staking offers within the Metis ecosystem. It allows users to participate in securing the network while still having some liquidity with their assets.
That's fascinating. It seems like Metis is really trying to create a system that is both financially rewarding and accessible for its users. And speaking of accessibility, this Nuovo Documento file hints at some pretty interesting projects being built on Metis. What can you tell us about those?
This Nuovo Documento file mentions some intriguing projects on Metis like WADGM and DeFi Kingdoms. It even says DeFi Kingdoms is generating real revenue and active users. What makes these projects stand out?
Well, it's fascinating how these projects are really leveraging Metis's unique advantages. DeFi Kingdoms, for example, is a game built on the blockchain. Now, blockchain games are notorious for being slow and expensive, which is a terrible combination if you're trying to attract players.
Right. It's like trying to play a fast-paced video game with dial-up internet. Exactly. But because Metis transactions are so fast and cheap, DeFi Kingdoms can offer a much smoother and more enjoyable gaming experience. Plus, by building on Metis, they tap into this passionate community that's really excited about decentralized applications.
So it's not just about the tech, it's about the community too. It seems like Metis understands that building a successful platform requires more than just cool technology. You need a thriving ecosystem of users and developers.
Precisely. And that's where initiatives like the Metis Ecosystem Development Fund, EDF, come in. It's basically a venture capital fund specifically designed to support projects building on Metis.
I see. So they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're not just talking about building an ecosystem, they're actively investing in it.
Right. And it's not just about the money either. They've partnered with P1X, a Web3 incubator, to provide mentorship and support to early-stage projects. Think of it like a nurturing environment where these projects can grow and thrive with guidance from experienced mentors.
That's a really smart move. They're not just throwing money at the problem, they're trying to create a supportive environment for innovation to flourish. But let's face it, the Layer 2 space is getting crowded. How does Metis stack up against heavy hitters like Arbitrum and Optimism?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Well, Arbitrum's been around longer and has a strong foothold in decentralized finance, commonly called DeFi.
For those of us who aren't as familiar with DeFi, can you give us a quick rundown?
Of course. In simple terms, DeFi aims to rebuild traditional financial systems like lending and borrowing, but on the blockchain, making them open and accessible to anyone. And Arbitrum has become a popular platform for DeFi applications.
So Arbitrum is the veteran in the DeFi space. What about Optimism? What are they bringing to the table?
Optimism is interesting because they're really pushing the boundaries of community governance. You could say they're taking the community-driven approach even further than Metis, with a strong emphasis on decentralized decision-making. They've also gained a lot of traction in the DeFi space.
So it sounds like Metis is up against some stiff competition, both in terms of technology and community support.
Absolutely. But that's the exciting part. This competition ultimately benefits everyone because it pushes each platform to innovate and improve.
Speaking of competition and innovation, I can't help but notice this intriguing connection mentioned in our source material. Something about Vitalik Buterin.
Ah, yes, the
Well, yeah.
Ethereum connection. It definitely piqued my interest as well. It turns out that Vitalik Buterin's mother, Natalia Ameline, is a co-founder of Metis.
Now that's what I call a family affair. But how involved is Vitalik himself? Is this a secret weapon for Metis?
Well, it's important to clarify that Vitalik himself isn't directly involved in Metis's day-to-day operations. He hasn't publicly endorsed the project, and there's no evidence to suggest he's working on it behind the scenes.
So no late-night coding sessions with Vitalik.
Probably not. However, the connection is still significant. Natalia Ameline brings a wealth of experience to the table, having been deeply involved in the blockchain space for years.
It definitely adds a layer of intrigue to the Metis story. So we've got speed community, a splash of Ethereum royalty, but can Metis actually deliver on its promises? What does the future hold for them? So we've established that Metis has a lot going for it, but with all these layer 2 solutions popping up, how do we know Metis can actually deliver on its promises? What does their future look like?
Well, one major development is their goal of full decentralization by the end of next year.
Okay, so full decentralization by the end of 2024. That's ambitious. We've talked about sequencer nodes being chosen by the community. How would this full decentralization change things? What would it mean for the average Metis user?
Think of it this way. Right now, there's still some degree of centralized control. It's like a company managing its own servers. But full decentralization would be like transitioning to a model where the community truly governs the network. No single entity could make decisions. It would be like a decentralized organization.
So kind of like shifting from company run to truly community owned and operated.
Exactly. And for users, it means increased security and transparency. If no one entity controls the network, it's much harder for bad actors to cause problems. Plus, every decision becomes transparent and accountable to the community.
That makes a lot of sense. It seems like achieving this level of decentralization by next year could be a game changer for Metis. But what about other developments? Are there any integrations or partnerships that stand out?
One that I found interesting is their planned integration with Eigenday.
Eigendia, right? Heard that name thrown around. What's special about this Eigendia integration?
Well, it could significantly boost Metis's efficiency. We're talking even faster transactions and even lower fees.
So we're talking about making something that's already fast and efficient even better. Why is that so important?
Imagine if blockchain applications, like that DeFi Kingdoms game we discussed, could run as smoothly as any app on your phone. That's the potential Eigendia unlocks. And that kind of efficiency, it's crucial for getting everyday people to actually use blockchain technology.
So it's not just about being a little faster, it's about making blockchain tech so easy to use that anyone can benefit from it.
Precisely.
Well, listener name, it seems Metis is firing on all cylinders. They're building a passionate community, attracting talented developers, and focusing on real-world applications.
They're definitely playing the long game. But whether they become the leading Ethereum scaling solution, well, that's a question for another deep dive.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, what aspect of Metis intrigues you the most? Let us know your thoughts on social media. Until next time, stay curious, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.